Shalom. So I'm gonna make this as quick as possible. Everything I say in this video, I will put the references in below the video, so including the definition. But this is gonna be a video that talks about one of the ways that we deconstruct. And this form is called syncretism. Syncretism is basically when you take two belief systems and you try to fuse them together into one. It's similar to pluralism, but I'll talk about that in another video. So basically with syncretism, you try to take like Hinduism and Christianity and mesh them together. And the problem with that is eventually you're going to run into a conflict because this one's going to tell you that you have to do something that this one tells you can't do, and vice versa. So and then Matthew 6 even tells us, I know it says you can't serve two masters in the stock. It says God or mammon. But at the end of the day, if you replace mammon with any other thing that you're worshiping other than Yahuah, it's basically just saying that if you try to worship Yahuah and then worship something else, eventually you're either going to leave him or you're going to leave that other thing, but you can't worship both of them at the same time. But syncretism is the attempt to try to worship them at the same time. So a great example that Yahuah gave me for this is King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. So King Ahab is the king of Israel. He marries Jezebel, who is the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of Sidon, which is a pagan nation. And Ethbaal means with Baal. So they are worshipers of Baal and Asherah. Baal, if I'm not mistaken, is Lord of the Harvest. So they would sacrifice animals on the altar of Baal to bless their harvest coming in. And then Asherah was supposed to be like a goddess of fertility. So they had these Asherah poles that they would worship and whatnot in order to be blessed with many children. And it talks about in 1 Kings chapter 16, starting in verse 32, how Ahab actually built an altar for Baal in Samaria. And he also built Asherah poles as well. So pausing right there, this is part of the reason why the woman at the well, who was a Samaritan woman, was so shocked when Yeshua was talking to her, because he's a Jew and she's a Samaritan. And this is some of the things that would go on in Samaria that made the Jews that actually solely worshipped Yahuah hate the Samaritans. To them, the Samaritans were filthy. They were beneath dirt. They weren't even dirt. They were beneath dirt. So a lot of times when they would go from Galilee to Jerusalem, they would completely go around Samaria, where the quickest route was through Samaria, which is that is actually the route that Yeshua took when he met the woman at the well in Samaria. Quick little side note right there. But yeah, so then you see in 1 Kings chapter 18, so Elijah was the prophet that Yahuah used to enact a drought on the land, a famine and a drought on the land. And if you go to verse 18, chapter 18, Obadiah and was sent out in one direction, and Ahab went in another direction to find Elijah, because they wanted this, to be lifted. And then Obadiah was actually the one that found Elijah. And Elijah was like, first of all, Yahuah had told Elijah to go and speak to King Ahab. So when Obadiah found him, Elijah was like, go get Ahab. Elijah was known for 1 minute being in a place and then the next minute being gone. So Obadiah was kind of scared. He was like, I don't want to go tell him you're here. And then when he gets here, you're not here, because he's going to kill me. And he's like, don't worry, I'll be here. So in verse 17 of chapter 18 in 1 Kings, you see when Ahab and Elijah meet up. And it says, when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, is that you, the one ruining Israel? And then Elijah replied, I have not ruined Israel, but you and your father's family have, because you have abandoned the Lord's command and followed the Baals. So again, he's telling you, when you start to worship other deities outside of Yahuah, you eventually will wind up abandoning your first love, who is Yahuah, to go after these other idol gods. And so he says, now summon all of Israel to meet at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. So he's calling Jezebel out too, like, yo, your wife is part of this too. And he's recognizing where this came from. It came through Jezebel. So I'm going to stop right there because everybody, well, most of the people that's watching this probably know the story. If you don't know the story of what happens next, just go and read 1 Kings chapter 18, and it's pretty interesting. But I just want to skip ahead to Revelation chapter 2, starting at verse 18. This is the church at Thyatira that Yeshua actually rebukes through John. And it says, write to the angel, again, Revelation 2 and 18. Write to the angel of the church of Thyatira, thus says the Son of God, the one whose eyes are like a fiery flame and whose feet are like fine bronze. I know your works, your love, faithfulness, service, and endurance. I know that your last works are greater than the first, but I have this against you. You tolerate the woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess and teaches and deceives my servants to commit sexual immorality, that's the worship of Asherah, and to eat meat sacrificed to idols, that's the worship of Baal. I gave her time to repent, but she does not want to repent of her sexual immorality. Look, I will throw her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery with her into great affliction, unless they repent of her works. I will strike her children dead, not necessarily her biological children, just those who practice the things that she practices. Then all the churches will know that I am the one who examines minds and hearts. I will give to each of you according to your works. I will say to the rest of you in Thyatira who do not hold this teaching, who haven't known the so-called secrets of Satan, as they say, I am not putting any other burden on you. Only hold on to what you have until I come. So it's just, I mean, not to beat a dead horse with a stick, but I'm just saying, like, Yahuah tells us several times, not to worship other idol gods. So obviously trying to take one belief system and merge it into the worship of Yahuah is just simply not what he wants to do. And we see a lot of people deconstructing and doing these things. Before I gave my life to Christ, I dated this guy, wonderful guy. And me and him, one of the things that caused me and him to really hit it off was at that time, I just pretty much had what I call a religious buffet where I would pick and choose different parts of various different religions, and I formed them together into what I would call, like, at the time I called it my universal religion. I didn't know it was actually universalism was a real thing, but I was just like, hey, it's a universal religion, and he did the same thing. Now, of course, you can pretty much already guess that everything that I picked and everything that he picked from these other religions were things that was appealing to us. Hinduism, witchcraft. Um, we had some Buddhist beliefs in there. We had a little bit of Christianity in there, Mormonism, and even some Satanism. Because if you know what true Satanism is just humanism in disguise, or humanism is just Satanism in disguise. So Satanist comes in the guise of humanism. So if you don't know what humanism is, look it up. I'll put a definition for that in underneath the video. Said all that to say, we did everything from all those belief systems that appealed to us. But we never really could worship one God because we were so busy being pulled in so many different directions. So when you see people start to deconstruct in the form of syncretism, if they don't have a strong foundation, which is Yeshua HaMashiach, and part of having that strong foundation is knowing who Yeshua HaMashiach is and what he came to do, what that means for us and all of mankind. If you're not standing on that strong foundation, when you start to deconstruct and these other beliefs are introduced to you, then you kind of start to abandon Yahuah like Ahab did, and you start to follow after and even commit yourself to these idol gods the same way Ahab did and the kings that came before him, because I said Omri did the same thing. That was his ancestor. So syncretism. So when you see someone deconstructing in this way, first and foremost, pray for them, because you may not be able to just go straight in and be like, "Yo, you're practicing syncretism." Like, that is definitely not what I would recommend you doing. But just pray for them. If you're in this position where you're starting to kind of doubt Yahuah and you're starting to feel yourself go off in this other direction, the best thing I can say for you is ask yourself why it is you feel like this is a better direction than the foundation that you've already been standing on with the worship of Yahuah. because 9 times out of 10, it'll be rooted in a fleshly desire or want, and pride, because pride is literally what leads people away. I mean, pride is what got Hasatan kicked out of heaven. So yeah, syncretism. So we see a lot of this happening in the church right now. We see a lot of it being preached through the pulpits because unfortunately, I mean, well, yeah, unfortunately, we fail to realize that pastors and prophets and whatnot, they're human like everybody else. So at the end of the day, we have to keep them covered in prayer because they are, I mean, Ahab was the king of Israel and he deconstructed in the form of syncretism. So we have to keep each other covered in prayer so that when these other things are brought to us, because they're going to be brought to us, we won't fall away and go after false gods. All right, I think I babbled long enough. So again, I'll put everything that I spoke about underneath the video. And I hope you guys look forward to the next video. I have other videos that I'm going to be posting along with this one because I have, like I said, I have a lot of videos like backed up in my little archive. So if you start seeing 2 and 3 videos a day, I apologize. It's just I wasn't being completely obedient before, and now Yahuah is like, post a video. So I apologize in advance. But I love you guys. I hope this was informative. If you have any questions, I'm all ears. If I don't know the answer, I'll let you know. I don't know. But yeah, until next time, Shalom Aleichem.